We are live, and this is the Real Spiel. This is Del K. Burton, and welcome. Welcome to the Real Spiel. Welcome to an evening of the new revolution. And I'm waiting for Clarence Jones. In the meantime, while I wait for him, I'm going to present to you a study on Torah. I figured I'd kill two birds with one stone, but Clarence Jones, as many of us know, is a powerful voice from the past and from the present. He was the lawyer of Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King. In fact, you know what? It always upsets me that people forget about the fact that he was a reverend, and actually operated in the capacity as a bishop too. When we see that he ordained Al Sampson, so you know, the Right Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. This man was his right hand. He was a speechwriter. He was his lawyer, and he's into his 90s now, just giving us an idea of where King would be. And so I'm hoping that we can get him on. Miss Coco B, peace, family. Shabbat and Shalom, Timothy Davis, Yvonne Shelton. The Black Holocaust, 1890-1845, Furpo, W. Carr, PhD. Okay. I'm supposing that's a writing, but definitely it sounds like something powerful. So you know what? While I wait for him, would you guys like to come with me into a little study of my extension of Torah? Because all of this is the overarching conversation of agenda. Agendas start from humanity and spread all the way up to the kingdom of heaven and God. And the question really is, does God have an agenda? The question is, does God have an agenda? And let me take you with me as we investigate. Does God have an agenda? All right. So come with me in my little study here, and let's get excited about what's about to take place. Here's my little PowerPoint, and from current side. So does God have an agenda? Right. And that's our conversation, and the agenda of God. And the agendas of God can be felt out a few different ways. If I have an agenda, my agenda can be seen in the contract I give you. If we sit down at the table and we decide on a contract, we decide on an agreement of terms, you can see what I'm looking for in the contract. If you can read a contract well, and we're dealing with a lawyer today, and I'm hoping he has the capacity to get on, because I know he's been going through a few things. The understanding is, what is his agenda? That's covenant. What is a covenant? We talked about a few of them: the Edenic one, the Adamic one, the Hebrew name of God in Genesis 1-6, and what is the Hebrew word for Adam? We're going to go into those two things, and we'll see if Mr. Jones comes through. What becomes interesting in the human anthropology is the commonality of ancient flood stories. I always say this. People say, oh, the Bible is just a storybook. Many other cultures have flood stories. Well, of course. It would make sense if your ancestry stems from 8 people, if the entire world descends from 8 people, those 8 people who experienced a flood that devastated the world, a flood that took over the entire ecology of what they were currently dealing with, and then that story continued. Every single civilization would, of course, have a flood story, and so. Apparently in the Greek conversation, Zeus sent a flood to destroy the men of the Bronze Age. Prometheus advised his son, Deucalion, to build a chest. All other men perished except for a few who escaped to high mountains. The mountains in Thessaly were parted, and all the world beyond the Isthmus and the Peloponnese were overwhelmed. Deucalion and his wife Pyrrha, daughter of Epitheus and Pandora, after floating in the chest for 9 days and nights, landed in Parnusius, where the rain ceased. He sacrificed to Zeus, the god of escape. So this is a flood story from the Greeks, and they continue. The Sumerian flood. The Sumerian flood story, also known as the Eridu Genesis, Sumerian creation myth, and Sumerian deluge myth, is the oldest alleged Mesopotamian text relating to the tale of the Great Flood, which would appear in later works such as the Athrophis of the 17th century and the Epic of Gilgamesh. Right? So we go into what was first famous of the story of Noah and his ark and the biblical flood of Genesis, which we hear around the time of Moses in 1450 BCE. Right? So this is a commonality, right? It's a commonality in civilizations. It doesn't make sense that so many civilizations have the same basic story said their way. An oral tradition that is preserved. And why are they so similar? The extant work is badly damaged and the number of significant lines missing, but can still be read easily and understood as early as the Great Flood story. Scholars who have studied the text generally rely on the later Akkadian Babylonian, which tells the same tale, to fill the blanks of a missing text from the broken tablet. The story most likely influenced the Egyptian flood story, known as the Book of the Heavenly Cow, okay, dated in part to the first intermediate period of Egypt, which certainly was the inspiration for the later Mesopotamian works, as well as it says this biblical narrative of the Noah, which we know is false, but this is what they know for sure. But this is what we know for sure. So people really believe that this old story is what affected Moses' story. Of course, most of us believe that to be false, but let's figure out what we know to be true. Those writings that they say is so old, and it's older than the flood story, they were found in 1853 in the ruins of the Library of Nineveh. And the dating allegation is what we must question with ancient writings. I don't know if anybody knows about how to, they use a lot of different types of dating mechanisms with ancient writings, carbon dating and other things, but this is how we usually can debunk how old something is. It's by basically how old or how they actually date the writings. The dating allegation is what we must question. The author, who is penned in the Akkadian language, is named Sin Lequinini. The allegation is that this is an older story than Noah. The secret to debunking both fraudulent and ancient manuscripts and fraudulent religious artifacts is language, not the age of the manuscript. See that? So when somebody is saying something is very old, there's a way that you can figure out, okay, let's see if it's as old as it says it is. And the secret to it is language. Let's keep going. So we're having a conversation about Torah. We're having a conversation about the agenda of God, and we're talking about similarities. Happy Friday, French Wee Wee. Good to see you. Good to see you. So cuneiform are wedge-shaped characters. All right, ancient language cuneiform. This stuff is a little bit advanced. I know you guys came here to talk about Clarence today. Clarence, hopefully you'll come on in a few minutes. We're trying to get him organized. He's an older man, and StreamYard isn't easy for him. He's used to using Zoom. So for now, you're getting a detailed study of ancient language in the context of Torah and the agenda of God. So cuneiform are wedge-shaped characters that are common to Semitic and Hamitic people. And this is, it's very interesting because in our conversations of who is Semitic, who is Hamitic, you got to understand that Semitic and Hamitic people, because of their close proximity, developed similar language styles, writing styles, similar cultures, right? So we can have that. Peace to the room, Cortez Charles, and Yahuwah's kingdom. Shalom to you too. We can have conversations about the closeness of Semitic and Hamitic people because all of these people are basically in the same geography, in the same culture, but they have different ethnicities. But they're Afro-Shemitic and Afro-Hamitic because they're essentially cousins, right? They essentially came from the same 8 people. They are related, right? And again, as much as we want to fight with Japhetic individuals who claim Jewishness and of course and are also claiming Shemiticness, right? Japhetic people who want to be Shemitic, we fight with them because we feel they are misappropriating their tribal ethnicities. But in the long story of this, we are still cousins. We are still related. We still have one story. So this is the written system for all ancient people of the Mesopotamian region. The Akkadian language was the language of the Shemitic Sumerians. So if Akkadia descended from Shem, who was on the ark, it is not difficult stretch when we see that the common cultures of common language have a common ancestry of tales and writings. You see that? So when somebody says, well, those Babylonian writings sound just like the biblical writings, and the Bible is younger than these stories. Very easy to say, hey, hold on a second. Akkadians, their language is Shemitic. They're Shemitic Sumerians. So if Akkadia descended from Shem, Shem was on the ark. And if Shem was on the ark, and he's their ancestor, the flood story would have been consistent to them. It's not a difficult stretch, right? Common ancestry, common folklore, common tales, common oral tradition. Very easy. Okay, let's keep going. Genesis, I said this earlier in a study, but I'm going to say it again. Genesis covers more time in the Bible than any other book in the Bible, and all the books of the Bible combined. I think it's hard for us to really fathom that, right? When you're studying Genesis, you're studying a greater time period than the whole Bible combined. It's an incredible time period, right? Some of it is not timed at all prior to the fall. So the eons of how long did it take Adam to eat from that tree and to be expelled? We don't even have a time for that. So because the clock doesn't really start in Genesis till the fall. It's hard for us to think about that. When you're immortal, does time matter? Does age matter? When you're immortal, when you cannot die? No. Nobody sits there and thinks, at least not reasonable people, how old is God? When is his birthday? Right? We don't think of that when we think of Elohim. We only start counting time when our mortality starts tracking us down. So Genesis spans from 4000 BC to approximately 2090, right? In Genesis 1 alone. Again, 2090 BC, right? So that's Genesis 1 to 11 alone. The Noahic oral tradition predates all other oral traditions for the easy, simple reason Noah predates them. It's easy. The Noahic oral traditions predates every oral tradition because Noah predates every oral civilization and every civilization after him. Noah himself lives 350 years after the flood for a total of 950 lunar years. That's important. They're lunar years. They're not solar years because we know that the Jew, the Hebrew, the ancient man has a lunar calendar. All right. Good to see you, Yvonne Gentles. She said present. Yahweh, not God, high lofty one inhabiting eternity's day first. Okay. Just taking a look. All right. Let me just keep going. Terah, the grandson of Noah, he dies at about 2090 BC. So we can see like just Noah's family, immediate family alone, if we go from his grandson, calling grandsons immediate, one generation off, that's 2,000 years alone, right? My grandson and me are not separated by 2,000 years. That's a crazy amount of time, right? When you have Noah living for about 1,000 lunar years. So A lunar year, I believe, is, and you guys, some of you might know better than me, but it's not 365 days, it's approximately 328 days. That's a lunar year, approximately 328 days. So you can do the math with there, right? So you're still well over 900 years. Again, we're waiting for our good friend Clarence Jones, and I'll pop out when he steps in. But if he's not able to make it, you're going to get one strong study tonight, and tomorrow for fire and above. I'm going to do some very deep conversations about strategy building. We're going to have a strategy seminar when it comes to the new civil rights. I have a couple of things that I want to drop on you. This is for members only. It's happening tomorrow at 10 a.m. It's a Saturday. Many of you from 10 a.m. to 11. So members only, 10 a.m. to 11. It's your members live, right? For fire and above. The Semitic plan. Yahweh's mankind's life. Yahweh Keith Berry. I'm not sure of what you're writing, brother. Just you can just write it out. You can just write it out normal, so we can have. I love to have dialogue with you about what you're saying. I'm not sure what the intention is in respect to what you're writing. So just clarify for me what you're getting to, and we can go back and forth. I love that. That'd be good. So the Shemitic plan, Genesis 11, 10 to 32. God begins the long process of narrowing his plan to a specific bloodline. Here's where we get into a bloodline conversation with God. Now, this is the thing where, I love to have these debates in my head, right? I don't know if you guys do this. I do debates in my head. I plant a garden. So when I plant this garden, I plant tomatoes over here. I plant cucumbers. I plant a tree, peach tree over here, and some carrots and some cabbage and some breadfruit. And so I plant this garden. Now, when I plant this garden, it is not my agenda. We're talking about God's agenda. It is not my agenda for the tomatoes to take over the whole garden, right? Or for the breadfruit to choke out the potatoes, right? Or for the carrots to completely eradicate the soil quality so the cucumbers can't exist. That could never be my agenda, because I wouldn't have bothered planting the garden, right? I have a purpose with the garden. I might plant mint. Why would I plant mint? So that the garden could smell nice, right? I might plant roses. Why? So that the garden could look nice. So I have all these different agendas to when I plant my garden, but the totality of my garden is working within the ecosphere of the entire garden. Everything is working. Why would I want, and this is my conversation with God. Why do I want one specific fruit to take over the garden? Why would I want rabbits to eat all my carrots? Or why would I want birds to eat all my seeds? I got to balance this thing out, I'm thinking. But it's clear early in the scripture, when we look at it from front to bottom, that God begins a process of narrowing his plan to prefer a specific people, right? See what this brother is saying here. Okay. All right. So you're saying Yahweh a lot here, bro. And let's have a conversation about this real quick. So in this part of the scripture, the name Yahweh for God doesn't exist. Okay? He's never called Yahweh in Genesis. Noah wouldn't have called him Yahweh. Abraham would never have called him Yahweh. His name isn't Yahweh yet. He's not referred to as Yahweh. And in the early portion of scripture where we are, he is Elohim. That's who he is here, right? So they wouldn't even have called him. They wouldn't have called him Yahweh. They wouldn't have called him Adonai. They wouldn't have called him some of the later terminologies that we have. Here, he's the Elohim. That's who he is, right? So if you're looking for pronunciation of things right now in Genesis, he's not Yahweh. The Yahweh is a name that comes later. He's Elohim. For longer than he's ever called Yahweh, he's called Elohim. You realize that? Because like I told you, Genesis is a longer period of time than the entire Bible put together. So God would have been called Elohim for longer than he was ever called anything else afterward to now. Isn't that wild? So sometimes we don't need to wrestle with the names, right? Because sometimes we're actually not contextually in the right place with God. Right here in Scripture, Elohim would be who he is. He is the Elohim. So we see that a theme is unfolding. In Genesis, after the birth of Seth to Adam and Eve, we see God, the Elohim, who now becomes very genealogically specific. So God now starts to assert to Moses, who's writing this, he's saying, hey, now, right now, start tracing the genealogies. Whose son is whose? Whose son is whose son? Whose son is whose son? And we start breaking it down. So we know who Cain's descendants are. And we know who Seth's descendants are. And he starts itemizing between Cain and between Seth. The question that we need to have is why? I'm gonna leave you in the why. Think about it. Why? Right? So Chaldea, Babylon, Acadia are all interchangeable terms at the time of Abraham. Chaldea, Babylon, Acadia. They're all the same place. They're basically all the same people. Right? See you in a minute. The covenant of Abram. Not Abraham, but he's Abram. Just like he's not Yahweh, he's Elohim. So we're dealing with Abram. Right? Abram. Or we get terms from him. It could mean father. His name could mean father. It could mean a few things. But basically it's father. Right? Abraham, the father of nations. And I think I want to break something down with Abraham. Right? Abraham. Abraham. Who's Ham? We know who Ham is. Ham is the Canaanite ancestor. Noah says that cursed be Canaan due to Ham. God takes Shem, his descendant, Abram, and makes him what? Abraham. He makes him, Abram simply means the father of Ham. When people say, oh, his name means the father of many nations, let's be more specific. God is saying that you are now, even though you are Shem, you are in the line of Shem, I'm going to make you the father over the land of Ham. Abraham, right? The father of the nations of Ham. He's saying, I'm going to give you the Canaanite nations and make you the Lord over those nations, the father over those nations. That's what we're seeing. Okay. Get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house, and I will make thee a great nation. What was God really asking? This thing is a really powerful breakdown if you're thinking about it. If I take this sentence and I say, what is God doing? I can really say God is making, I can go really far. He's making a new species of man. He's making a completely new ethnicity of man, right? And he is making a new nation out of man. Get thee out of thy country, right? That's ethnicity. And from thy kindred, that's species. And from thy father's house, that's generation an inheritance. He's saying, I'm taking away your inheritance from your natural father. I'm taking that away. I'm going to cut that off from you. I'm taking away your generational or traditions, taking that away from you. And I will make you a great nation. Right? And I say, what was God really asking here? That's powerful. If he says, Brereton, no longer call yourself a Trinidadian. Don't identify with your Canadian passport. Don't see your father as your father anymore. You're not going to be the son of Peter John. That's not how you're going to be. That's my daddy. I want to take you, in fact, abandon all of that. When you think about it, Abram never goes back and fellowships with his parents, right? It's holiday season. Many of us in the holiday season, what are we doing? We're going back and we're fellowshipping with our parents. We're fellowshipping with our family. Abram is told, cut them all off. Cut them all off. Move from where you are. Brett, get up from where you are. Get on the plane. Fly until I tell you to get off the plane, until I tell you to land. He says, walk until I tell you to stop. Don't set your mind on these people anymore. They are no longer your kindred. This is a very crazy thing to tell an ancient person, because ancient tribalism grows based on family, based on the power of the tribe. The Ashkenazi still uses this method. Jewish people today still use this method. You ask a Jewish man, what does it mean to be Jewish? It means for us to be a family. We are all family. We are really all a family. We're a family of people. We're a family of believers. We're all interrelated. That's what it means to them, right? You see the run-of-the-mill black person, run-of-the-mill walking down the street, you know, you say, what up, brother? Hey, what's up, brother? You're using it as a colloquialism. Hey, what's up, sis? You're using it as a colloquialism. They're using it as no, they're saying, no, we're really related. They're really related. We're really related. That's how we actually need to think now. Especially if you're people of the book. We're really one people. Now you might know why people are fighting you or hating you because of what you look like. Because they can see that you're not them. I'll leave that there. But he's telling Abram, get out of your ethnicity, your family line, your species, your mentality. Move from here. Come on now. Peace, love, my brother. Yes, we're family. Yosef Walker. Family. Come on. Here we go. Genesis ends with two messianic possibilities. And can I pat myself on the? I was in my bag when I wrote this stuff back, because I was on fire. I was in my bag when I wrote this. I just want to pat myself, because this is one of the greatest studies I've done. I have a lot, but this is one of the ones I really like. Because of the amount of effort it took. It took me many years to get this information down the way God wanted me to get it down. But I'm really. When you know, sometimes you read something and then you come back years and you read it again, you're like, oof, Lord, I was in it when I was reading this. This is how this hits me sometimes when I reread it. The book of Genesis leaves us with some very powerful characters and a puzzle to have to unravel. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are our premier Old Testament patriarchs. We have a distinct bloodline that God is very conspicuous in using and establishing himself on. We lose people and access in Genesis. We lose the garden. We lose Abel. We lose Cain. Remember, Noah is not descendant of Cain. Sorry, yes, Cain. No one is descendant of Abel. So we lose Abel, his entire bloodline. We lose the entire bloodline of Cain, right? It's gone. Hello, my brother. Hey, yes, the real Spiel family. Grace to you, Miss Ann. Good to see you. Come into the class. Sit on the front. Sit in the front. We lose Cain. We lose the world, except for Noah and his family. So we lost a lot when we just get to Noah. We lose more. We lose Ishmael. We lose Esau. Right? God is pruning the tree. That should give you goosebumps. All these characters, God says, okay, yeah, he was here, gone. He was here, gone. We lose them. God's pruning the tree, saying, yep, Nope, nope, nope. This one, in this my seed shall be called. Right? We don't just lose Ishmael, we lose Hagar, the African. We lose the African who came in as a bondwoman. God says, nope, not my promise, but I will bless, but I will make him royal, but I'm not doing what I'm trying to do. My agenda isn't in the African woman named Hagar right there. My agenda is in the Afro-Semitic man and his Afro-Semitic wife, right? Whew, it's serious. God's very specific. He is the point of the spear, aiming at some things. He says he's got a promise in Shem, and in Hagar, he has royalty. This is why you cannot mix up Hagar and Ishmael with Islam. They are not related. People have said the white evangelical, the erroneous anthropologist has tried to say that Ishmael is Islam. No, sirree, Bob. Can't be. Can't be Islam. Can't be Islam. First of all, way too far. Secondly, Ishmael and Hagar are part what? Sorry, Ishmael is half Shemitic, half Hamitic. So he's mixed between Abraham's line of Shem and Hagar's line of Africa, Ham. So he's an African and a Semite. Hagar is an African. She's Africa. She's not an Arab, right? Where we get with Esau. Esau is where the Arab comes from. Again, making some big mistakes with your anthropology when we try to make Esau into a white man. He's not white, right? We get the Edomites from Esau. Esau cannot be a white man because he's what? He's not Japhetic. He's not European. He is a Shemite. So we have Afro-Arabs coming out of Esau. We have Afro-Shemitic people coming out of Jacob, right? But they're both Shemitic, and they're different nations, but they're different nations owning the same land mass. Ay, ay, ay. Look at Palestine. Okay. You see it? So, as we continue. Yes, greet everybody in the room. Greet everybody in the room. Love to bless everybody who's here today. All of my subscribers, Miss Ann, Yvonne, who is a Spirit subscriber. Bless you, bless you. Miss French Wee Wee, another one of our members and subscribers. I can't shortchange you there. Members and subscribers, good to see you. Having a conversation right now about the agenda of God in the Torah. Hopefully to follow up with our dear friend. Whenever he comes on, he comes on. You guys get an hour of this and you get another hour of Clarence. Whenever he gets to come on, he gets to come on. I don't know if he's asleep. I don't know if he's in a situation, but he was planning to come on tonight. But I'd like to just greet everybody who's in the room, everybody who's on the channel. Case and Thomas, I haven't seen you in a while. Thank you to everybody who's here tonight. This is a great time to sit down and to have a teaching. Rosina Roach, awesome blessing, and blessings to you, brothers and sisters as well. So, Genesis 49, the two Messianic lines. The implication of Genesis 49 and the prayer and prophecy of Israel, Jacob, right, leave us in an extremely puzzling position. So when I say Israel, right, we're talking about who? Abram's grandson, correct? Abram's grandson, who God has now called Israel, Yisrael, right? And he has some powerful things to tell us at the end of his life. So we're now getting to the end of Genesis 49, and there's something going on. Powerful, clear distinctions that are happening. Yes. It is clear that Jacob, who is now called Israel, has a favorite child. It seems obvious who he should invest the blessing in, right? His favorite child at the end of this whole thing is Joseph. It's clear. And for good reason. The wickedness that his brothers did to him. And the man couldn't be stopped. Oh my gosh. If Joseph was my son and the rest of these worthless youths who set up my child, my favorite, you know, and do we know, remember why Joseph is his favorite son? Because the only woman he wanted to really have was Joseph's mom. Isn't it funny how nepotism and favoritism work? The father came into the countryside broke, had no money, and saw a good-looking thing, Miss Rachel, boy, and said, hey, listen, I ain't got no money, but I will work if you give me that one. And Laban, that old bandicoot, said, hey, you want that one? No problem. Work it off for 7 years, and she's yours. My guy looking at that sweet thing, worked 7 years, the Bible says, like it was a few days. Worked it off. Whew. Imagine 7 years of abstinence, 7 years of not dating, 7 years of flirting. That time went by like nothing. And at the end of 7 years, the man slipped him a 6 for a 9. Got him all drunk, had the wedding feast, put the veil on her, you know, dimmed the lights. Right? Slipped in the sister. I don't know what he was doing, Rachel. Rachel must have been sitting there screaming, going crazy, saying, what's going on? It's supposed to be my wedding night. How do you slip her in? They must have had her gagged and tied up in the back. And her sister just coyly just went along with it. Got his Jacob all drunk. Jacob went down there and did his duty, woke up in the morning. That's not the one. He said, hold on. He said, wait. This ain't the one. This ain't the 7 years I work and you give me the wrong one? He said, oh, it's okay. You can have both of them. Deal with this one for a week. And after a week, I'll give you the sister, but you got to work 7 more years. Ooh. And to add insult to injury, when he finally gets the one he wants, she's barren. She can't have no kids. Can't have any babies. The other one's pushing out babies like nothing, right? Powerful, the amount of babies she pushes out. She pushes out some serious lines, though. She pushes out some serious lines. She pushes out the line of Levi, speaking of Leah. She pushes out the line of Judah. 2, watch this. Leah pushes out in Levi the Mosaic line, the Mosaic law. The entire Moses comes from Levi. Judah, she pushes out who? Christ, David and Christ the Lord. Powerful. Crazy. And a wife that he didn't want. Does God have an agenda? But Joseph is Israel's favorite son. That's the child he likes. That's the boy. That's the one. Here we go. He calls him the dreamer, the visionary, the prophet is in Joseph. He has more gifts. He has more anointing than anyone, including his father. Look at God now. You would think, God, that must be the guy. That must be the guy. His name is Yosef. Yahweh shall add. His whole existence is a comeback. Boy, if I wanted to come, if you said which one of these men would you want to come from, I'm like, oh, give me that Joseph. That sounds like the black man right there. He's a comeback kid. His brothers throw him in a pit. His brothers sell him into slavery, and he comes back as a king. Give me that guy. Put that guy in my bloodline. He's got grit. Every place you put him, he becomes the boss. You can't bury that dude. Everywhere you put him, he excels. You put him in prison, he becomes the head of the prison. You put him as a servant, he runs all the books. You put him as a backup to the king, he saves the whole place. Come on, man. If I'm God, I'm like, Joseph is the dude I'm using. Joseph is the guy I want. If I'm God, I'm thinking, hey, it's got to be Joseph. But it's not. It's not. Wow. In fact, Genesis 49 is the only time we even get a hint of any level of spiritual gifting on Jacob. Jacob becomes a prophet. Israel, for the first time, we see it. Really, when we're looking at Jacob's life, it's like, bro, you got a lot of problems. Remember when he gets scared, when his daughter gets abducted, Dinah, and Levi and Simeon go in there and tear everybody up, kill all those men, trick them, and he gets terrified. He goes, "Oh my gosh, you're gonna make these guys gang up on me. I'm new in here. Oh, you guys." No, he didn't know he had lions. He didn't know he had monsters. He didn't know who he had. Yeah, Jacob was a little bit of a mess, but God was still using him. And so these two messianic lines, you got your messianic line that seems like it's coming out of Joseph, and then you got a messianic line that's coming out of Judah, and of course we've got Levi. So you almost got three, really. When you look at it, you almost got three. Why leave seemingly the keys to the family legacy in two hands, right? Let's analyze the possibilities. Let's analyze the possibilities. Look at this quote. You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good to save much people. Who says that? That's Joseph. Again, that sounds like Messiah in there. You meant it for evil, right? When they crucified Christ, but God meant it for good to save much people. And it's like, wow, this is clear. The messianic line must be in him. It must be in Joseph. It's so perfect. But we know better, right? Exodus, Wehela Shemoth. The Hebrew mind is different from the Greek and the Latin mind. This is very important. Because when we think of people and we approach their literature, we approach their stories, we got to understand that they're coming from a perspective that is specific to who they are, right? The Greek, the Latin, and the English mind sees this as a departure. The Hebrew is preparing a list of names to establish the 70 patriarchs of Israel that entered Egypt, right? So we see Exodus, we see leaving, but the Hebrew is saying names, the list of names, right? Our conversation when we talk about Wehel Shemoth, the book of Exodus, we're thinking of leaving a place. They're thinking, the Hebrew is preparing a list of names to establish the 70 patriarchs of Israel that entered Egypt. They're doing a census. We're just running out the door, but they're doing a census in their conversation. Greeks got demons, Israel got angels from Yah. Okay. Keep going. We're gonna keep going for a little while. Let's keep talking, man. Let's keep talking. I got a few more minutes for you. All right. Yes. So we'll talk about this right now. The politics of God and the politics of Egypt. Now, so Joseph at the time is in control of Egypt. He's the most powerful man in Egypt. The world is dealt with in international famine. Everybody is now sitting around in Goshen as a descendant of Joseph. The Goshenites, these individuals who are not Egyptian, they are Shemitic people in Africa. They are growing, they are thriving, and the favor of Joseph is on them for a season. but it's gone. Let me say, the story is just like Meghan and Harry. User to where it is now. Hey, that is kind of true. Somebody asked me to take a look at that story today. I gotta take a look at that story actually. There was a movie or something about that, and they told me to take a peek at it. I'm gonna do that. So you have this political impact of people who are not from there in Africa. That's just like Dimona right now, those saints in Dimona, right? That are in Israel. You have a great political impact of people, although they don't have the same ramifications of Israel being a small place and saying we don't have enough room. Egypt's not in that scenario. Egypt is more like these are foreigners, they're different, they don't have the same language code. Remember, Egyptian and Hebraic, not the same language, different mindsets, different people, right? So they're very different. Their customs are different. They might look alike. They look very similar, but their customs are not the same. And I don't know why this is strange to us, right? I can go sit down with some Ethiopians, with some Somalians. They know I am not a Somalian. I know they're not a Trinidadian. We're very different. We're the same color. We have this different language. We have different food types, smells, clothing. Everything's different. We're not the same. A Nigerian and a man from Libya, a man from a woman from Ethiopia, like they're not the same, but they're black. We call them black now, but we know they're not the same. So they're living as basically political refugees in Africa because of Joseph, and they're not the same. They don't have the air of the Pharaoh anymore like Joseph did. And so they're stuck in a place, thriving in a place for hundreds of years, growing the place, growing cattle, but there's an animosity and a divide that's rising up between them. And then there's also this messianic line that God is planning to pull out of Levi. We know that's Moses. So Joseph goes into Egypt. Joseph has all the gifts, has all the anointing, has all the visions, he's the favorite son. But then in Egypt, God looks into this group of people, and Joseph's half tribes of Manasseh and Ephraim, who stay connected to their people, his people. They live in Goshen. They thrive in Goshen. They learned the culture of his father's land. And now God is looking down and saying, but I'm going to pull something special out of Levi. There's a Messiah in Levi that I need to find. I need to pull out, right? Speaking of Moses. So see how God is jumping around here. The author of Well Hela Shemo. Did Moses exist? Let's get to that. The critics claim he did not. That he's a folklore character composed by later editors in Israel's history. Did you guys know that? That some people are saying that Moses didn't even exist. They gave him that he's like a Mark Twain type character. Although Mark Twain existed, his name wasn't actually Mark Twain, but they're saying that nope, this guy is just a folklore character. He's like Aesop's fable or something like that. So it's important that when we deal with even our ancient manuscripts, we deal with the critical commentary of the naysayers. We understand that there's people who sit here in this space and say, "Oh, that guy didn't even exist. Didn't exist." No, and I'll tell you why they say it. Some people say it. Well, when you look at ancient Egyptian cuneiform and you look at their hieroglyphics and their cave drawing, there's no conversation about a Moses and their history. Of course there's not. You don't want to talk about a guy who just overthrew the place. You're not going to, first of all, he's not Egyptian. So you're not going to focus on him. Plus, he didn't stay and conquer. He left, right? He didn't take over your culture and make sure you build shrines and monuments to him. He left. So it doesn't make sense to see him in Egyptian growing or developing in the Egyptian ethos because he left, right? So that makes a lot of sense. I go into here types of ancient government. This is important for now, and I'm going to have a conversation about some of this tomorrow. Tribalism, warriorism, right? Tribalism is just particular tribes are considered to be the leading tribe. The kings come out of this tribe, just like in Judaism, the priests come out of a specific tribe. All right. In the Messianic conversation, the king must come out of the tribe of Judah. So there's specific tribalism that speaks to specific things. Okay. Then you have warriorism. Warriorism is that you're led by the warrior. Israel gets into warriorism in the book of Judges. In the book of Judges, who is the warrior? That's our leader. So Samson becomes a warrior. Deborah and Barak become a warrior. Gideon is a war. This is warriorism, right? All the way to Samuel, which is warriorism, which is actually Samuel's is a little bit different. He's further down. We'll talk about him. We have ancestralism. Ancestralism, similar to tribalism, is that you have to be of a certain ancestry. So you have Levi. The Levites carry the ark. They're the holy men, but Aaron's sons are the priests, right? So ancestralism says only Aaron's sons are allowed to do the priesthood, but the Levites in the tribalism can carry the stuff, but the ancestralism comes a little deeper. Monarchy, we know what that one is. That's easy. Demigod, that's what we get now when we deal with things like Pharaoh and Nebuchadnezzar, right? They have a demigod. I am not just a man, I'm a god. The Persians do this too with Artaxerxes, right? He's the god king. And who else does it? Christendom does it, but we don't consider Christ a demigod. We think he is God, a very God, right? I'll skip that other one. Prophets and theocracy. Let me live on. Prophets would be Samuel. So Samuel is not a warrior. He's the last judge of the judge's era until they get to the kingdom era of the monarchy. But he's also a prophet, and Israel also goes into from warriorism to prophet-led too. They go back and forth from that. Elisha, Elijah, they go back and forth with that also, even though they still had a king. But a theocracy is what they always were. Up until Saul, King Saul, they were a theocracy, a true theocracy, which means led by God. God is king, right? A democracy is the people rule. Theocracy, God rules, is the rule of God. Kind of hard when he's not actually talking to you. He's not actually speaking to somebody specific and giving information, but that's what Israel truly was, a theocracy. They didn't let it happen. Messianic prophecies in Exodus. Is there any messianic prophecies in the book of Exodus? Yes or no? That's your own homework. I ain't giving you the answer. This is a class study, right? Is there any messianic prophecies in the book of Exodus? Yes or no? Right? And I did some comparisons. I'm not going to do that with you now. The rapid changes that take place in the Hebrew life from chapter 1 to chapter 13 is huge. Genocide and slavery for a period of 400 years. This is the book of Exodus we're in now. So we went all the way from Genesis and we're into Exodus. And I've got 6 minutes. I'm coming off at 8 o'clock. Okay, I won't go too long with this. So demigod, aristocracy to theocracy. All right. Demigod, aristocracy to theocracy. Who am I talking about? Pharaoh. Pharaoh is a demigod. Considers himself to be a god. He's got the greatest empire. He's got the greatest technology of the time. He's in the brass age or the bronze age, where everybody else is in the stone age. They have excellent understanding of stars, of irrigation systems, calendars. They have said that even ancient Egyptians did brain surgery successfully. When they looked at the mummies and saw that some of them survived, when they saw scars and things like that, so these person actually got brain surgery and it was successful. We know that they knew how to preserve the bodies. They didn't just throw you in the ground, right? They would fill you up with all of the, I forgot what they call it, with the liquid that now even Jewish people, that's how they embalm. Their embalming began with Egypt. They embalmed the body, wrapped the body. So they were different. These guys were way ahead of the game. No one's like them. The Egyptian culture was absolutely different. This is why they make movies about them and say these ancient Egyptians must have been from outer space, because their technology was so far ahead of everyone else, it didn't make sense. People still can't build the stuff that they build. People still can't understand how they were so advanced at that time. Right? And but this is the thing. When you're dealing with something that powerful, a group, a nation that powerful, people can't rise up and overthrow. And this is one of the things we talk about it when we're talking about the American experience. American blacks always say, well, if we do anything, they'll kill us. They got too much technology. We've had that story before. We've heard that story before. We've heard that. We've seen that before. There's not that. What could these rabble of 2 million people do against Egyptian Pharaoh with his chariots, with his armies? They didn't have a chance, mano on mano. Genocide and slavery for a period of 400 years, even to the point where they said, we're going to kill all the boys. There's too many of these guys. We're just going to kill the boys, right? Where have we seen that? We saw that in Argentina, when they were sending all the men to war and said, we're going to send all the men, let all the men go out to war, let these guys die. We'll take the women will marry white men. There will be no more blacks in Argentina. All right? We saw stories like this. This is the epitome of racial bias. It's racism. This is what's happening here. Racism in Africa. This is what's happening here. This is not new. Okay? So this is not a light thing to overlook. This period of time does not strip the identity of the Hebrews. Their slavery is a daily reminder they are not Egyptians. And this is the thing about why people, when they tell black people, can't you guys just stop telling this story? We're so tired of hearing black people complain. You're not tired of hearing that Ashkenazi Jew tell you about the Holocaust. You know why we can't stop? Because every day, every whip, every circumstance of our slavery beat it into us, and the consistent hegemony beat it into us that we're different. We can't stop because you haven't stopped. That's why they didn't stop. Their slavery was a daily reminder that they are not Egyptians. Our slavery is a daily reminder of who we are and who we are not. I'm going to talk about tomorrow a conversation I had with Rabbi Fume and what took place when he had a conversation with Jonathan Greenblatt yesterday. That's for fire members only. Fire members only. That's tomorrow. That's, oh man. You guys got to hear this conversation. You got to hear this. This is it. Their slavery is a daily reminder. They are not Egyptians. You got to hear this conversation I had with Rabbi Fume tonight. This is the guy that sits down with the Jewish community, a black man that sits down with, he's an Orthodox rabbi. This is supposed to be safe space for them. Oh, you want to hear this conversation. Fire and up, fire and above, 10 a.m. tomorrow. There we go. Right on time. Their slavery is a daily reminder They are not Egyptians. Pharaoh is just forcing you into the hands of God. And when we have these conversations about this new revolution, and I really wish Clarence could have come on today. Didn't catch him. It's unfortunate. He had every plan to be here. And so I know that, this is a situation where he must have had some type of emergency, because I've been planning to talk to him all week. So it was set up for me to speak with him tonight. But I want to talk to us tomorrow in a members-only content tomorrow about the conversation that Rabbi Fume had with the ADL 2 days ago. And I hope he's all right too. Christina has been trying to get him on the phone. She's been trying to contact him. Battery's running out. Oh shoot, let me plug his in. He's been trying to contact him. And I don't know if he fell asleep. He's 91 years old, so you got to give him a pass. All right, he's 91 years old. Got to give that man a pass. So I'm hoping he's okay too. So we are going to have that conversation about Rabbi Fume tomorrow. But there are some things that are happening behind the scenes, brothers and sisters, that it blows our mind. But it's just history repeating itself over and over again. Ancient history repeating itself, because people are not really that different, and people that oppress people are not really that different. And so we're going to have that conversation tomorrow. But what I want to hammer down in our heads is that when you study ancient history from a contextual perspective, as a person of color, as a Black person, as a person of ancestry, of ancient people ancestry. We are ancient people. We are not aboriginal. We are the original people. And we've built original and unique infrastructure and societies and communities, from Mesopotamia to Africa itself, to all over the world. We have built the most powerful and most diverse civilizations in the history of the world. And the timing, this is what I said to you. Genesis is bigger than all the time in the Bible combined. The time that we control the world is much longer than the world has been controlled by other nations. Do you understand that? We have been in control of the world for a very long time. There's something that the Hebrew Israelite brings up all the time, that the reason that God has allowed his people to be taken away is because of their sin, because of they misappropriated their relationship with their God. It's very true. It's very true. When I had that analogy earlier about the garden, we can look at that scenario and say, yes, we wouldn't plant a garden and want any one of the fruits to take over. But when we look at it not just as a garden, but we look at it as children, how God, I believe, sees us. And he sees the grace and what takes place in certain children. He says, oh, wow, I want more of them to be like this one. In fact, I'm going to invest in this one. This one's going to get the birthright. This one's going to get, I'm going to push her. I like her. I like how she moves. I like how she thinks. I like him. I like how he behaves. Yes. Be more like your brother. And so we see that God has these agendas that he assigns to his family and wants them to succeed in certain ways. And we see that we, for a very long time, we're in control. A very long time. All right? Black people, to call you, lack of a better term, so-called blacks, right? That's like Malcolm used to say, the so-called Negro in America. But so-called blacks controlled the world for a very long time. The question we need to ask ourselves is, why don't you control it anymore? Why don't you control it anymore? Where warriorism is gone. What is working now? What is the prevalent thought working now? I'm gonna tell you tomorrow. It's not warriorism anymore. If it was warriorism, Shoot, Chicago probably control the whole world. You know, we have some tough. We're still tough. We've never stopped being tough, but we're not. It's not warriorism anymore. It's not prophetism too, because we still the prophets. We still have the wisdom of God in us. He still makes sure that we are Joseph-like, that nothing can stamp us out. We're still here. We still rise up from the ashes like the phoenix. So it's not even the prophetism. Theocracy, God has still always been in control. He's never lost his control. Ancestry, we don't control that either. Our ancestry, it was taken away from us so long, we don't even have an understanding of it. What is the new revolution? I'll talk about it tomorrow. Members only. God bless our brother who couldn't make it tonight. Idolatry is the direction of today. That's powerful. And we do see idolatry, but idolatry is the devil's way. All right, it's not God's way. How does the new revolutionary, what does he use? Is God lifting up prophets in this era? Is he lifting up warriors? Is he lifting up demigods? What is he lifting up? So we'll have the conversation tomorrow. All right. To those who I might not see, season's greetings. Merry Christmas. I don't care if you don't like it or not. Merry Christmas. Christ is risen. Christ is born. Christ is risen. And Christ will come again. God bless you. Love, peace, and hair grease. In control for a very long time. It's coming back. Hence the struggle, right? The question is, do you deserve to rule? That's what you need to ask yourself. All right? Who wants to put a president in power that doesn't deserve to be there? Most black folk ain't going to go to a church where the pastor don't preach good. Pastor don't preach good, they don't want to go to that church. Because like, why would I sit under this guy? He don't preach good. Right? Who wants to go to a concert where the performer can't perform? They don't want to do that. The question for us is, can we handle the throne? All right. Bless you. I hope you have an amazing night, and we'll talk soon. I think I'll go here.